Welcome back, truth sniffers. I am overwhelmed with the viewer response to my return to the world of modern media. To think my career in journalism started all the way back in the 1940s, taking the local radio waves by storm with my explorations into the obscure, unsettling, and surreal areas of the lesser Montana area. Then I got together my bloodhound boys and started expanding our coverage into other towns. Many of you have brought up the paranormal investigative documentary show I did for 5 years in the late 70s and early 80s titled Detective Electric Barker, P.I. Me and the boys exposed some truly disturbing things during that show's run. Now I'm here, hoping to expose the paranormal and confusing layers that cover our world. And as always, the places I need to look and the way I relay my findings to you, the truth sniffers, evolves with the times. So I will be tackling some formats and topics that are commonplace now, even if new to me. Tonight won't be an investigation I've done myself, but rather some listener tales, in their own words. So let's get going. I am Pegasus, and tonight the Bloodhound Boys have brought you a couple of real-life stories involving instances of the world changing around an individual. Largely, these types of stories are seen as indications that we are living in a simulation. Honestly, often the solutions to understanding these stories, if there are any, can be much broader than that. So understand that we found a pair of stories that the individuals who experience them truly feel as if these are genuine situations that happened. That is the only thing we know for certain. These stories were shared with the public under good faith. Now, keep in mind that my Bloodhound Boys had some guidelines to follow when picking stories. Keeping the lights on at Cyberdog Investigations can get quite expensive, and honestly we need some sponsorship deals. These two completely true stories just coincidentally happen to both have mentions of one of my favorite food brands. So while we currently have no active sponsors, if anyone at the massive and delicious pizza product conglomerate Totino's is watching, I hope you see something you like. Again, we have no sponsors right now, but we are open to discussions from anyone interested. Alright. With that out of the way, let's get into the first story. I'd like to start this off by saying that I am a contract construction worker and my husband is a professional dance teacher. We are not crazy people. I also hadn't been drinking and don't do any drugs. I was clear-headed when this happened. My husband was at work but nearing the end of his shift. I had stopped by Woods Bay Market earlier to get stuff for dinner and had a list of movies to rent from one of those kiosks outside of the store that me and my husband had been wanting to see. When I got home I grabbed the mail, a hefty mixture of junk mail and letters, and tossed it and the movies I rented on our computer desk. I took off my heirloom wedding ring and started to put away the groceries. At around 6:15 I set the oven to 475 to start it getting warm. My husband was usually home at 7 p.m. and I wanted to have food ready before then, so when he was here we could just sink right into our couch and watch a film. I continued to put away groceries and prep for the night, checking the oven every so often and eventually popping in dinner. Now, anyone I know will tell you I'm kind of a wild card. I like to take risks and I don't often hesitate. I thrive when I'm dangling on that razor-sharp edge. So, when the time came where I could sense that the food was cooked, I grabbed the baking sheet with no oven mitt. Been doing it since I was a kid. That's why I was known as the wild card growing up. I did what I do before every movie night. I snatched one of those piping hot Totino's brand flaming hot Cheeto flavor pizza rolls right into my open mouth. I always cook up a few more for my own enjoyment before my husband gets home for movie night. Especially since Totino's acquired Doritos and brought those famous Doritos flavors to the crust of Totino's whole family of Italian pizza products. When the roll landed in my mouth I started screaming, just like every pre-movie night snack made me. It tasted perfect and I knew that me and my husband were in for a wonderful movie night. We have been going through a lot as a family lately. His job has been giving him longer hours and the physical nature of it was harming his body. Some days his work would be so hectic that he would just come home covered in dirt and bruises. Plus my husband and I had been trying to have a baby for a long time now, and it seemed like it just wasn't meant to be for us, and our mutual desire to be parents was very important to us. Of course, we have nothing against adoption. We are both in the process of exploring that option, and we are still very excited about potentially being able to provide a safe, encouraging family for a child that needs that opportunity. I think we both just didn't want to investigate medical possibilities into why I couldn't conceive. It's a road that has many scary revelations, and we just took a long time to go down it. Still screaming, I went into our living room and turned on the lights. Across the room, in the hallway, was a woman I didn't recognize. I started to scream even more and backed up into the kitchen again. She was young but dressed in old clothes with a plate of food in her hands. I guess she looked like she was from the 70s or something. She had been looking right at me but acted as if she didn't see me. I grabbed a knife and charged back into the living room. I kept screaming as I approached her, but she just stood there, talking to someone. I couldn't hear her speaking, and obviously we were the only people in the house. I started to approach her again, but I only got a few steps. My living room floor was grass now. In the hallway, behind the woman, was a wooden table with food on it. They were at some sort of large picnic. I finally stopped screaming and listened to her. I could even hear whispers of whoever she was talking to. I quickly realized the young woman was talking to her mother. The woman had just broken the news that she, like me, wasn't able to have kids. I know. Our family has a hereditary sickness. None of the women in our family have ever been able to get pregnant. I'm sorry I didn't tell you before, honey, but you were adopted. The young woman gasped and dropped her plate of food. That's when I noticed it, the same ring I had. The grass and park setting started to flicker, going from grass to hardwood and back again. My living room coming into view briefly before the front door opened. I turned around and I was back entirely in the living room. No grass. No picnic tables. No woman. My husband entered and looked concerned. I told him about the vision I just had and how I saw the same ring I had on the woman. He looked at the computer desk and picked up a letter. Look at this one. It's from your mother. I grabbed it and read the front. That's impossible. My mother has been dead for 10 years. Let's read it, he urged. It was a letter with my own mother now breaking the news to me about our family medical history. She was regretful she had kept it a secret from me and wished she could have told me before a deathbed letter became the only option. The news of me being adopted was a shock. Damn it, my husband growled. You just can't ever trust the post office, can you? Holy moly. Pretty surreal. Was that a technical glitch in the simulation of our world? Maybe some omniscient vision from the past, spiritually sent to her from the ghost of her mother? Or a simple example of mortal intuition manifesting from her subconsciously realizing the letter from her mother she grabbed from the mailbox? This is a world that is too complicated for us to fully understand. There are things that are beyond belief now, but, in time, hopefully we can move towards the truth. Grab a piping hot snack and a glass of water, then buckle up for this next hilarious glitch story. I'll try to be as clear as I can, but this is the first time I've sat down and really typed out this experience. I had 2 jobs at the time. I'd work from 7 in the morning until 3 p.m. 5 days at my full-time job at a print shop. I had a second job, working with kids, that I worked at also. I worked somewhere every day, 12 hours when I worked both. At my second job I had a coworker that I'll call Jeannie. She's the other person involved in this otherworldly experience of mine. I can't tell you her perspective on this whole thing because I'm too scared to bring it up with her. At my part-time I had started to hang out with Jeannie after work. We had got along really well despite having a lot of surface-level differences. She was pretty outgoing and adventurous. 2 things I always struggled with being without help from, well, people like her. Any spontaneous thing I've ever done has probably been because of friends that would make me feel comfortable to go along with them. On my own, I was often just frozen with anxiety at everything outside of my comfort zone. We connected really well though. On slow days we would have these great talks about making art and the struggle to integrate that as a major part of our lives. We both dwelled on the balancing of creative pursuit and survival via day job obligations. I was an illustrator, she was a photographer. Music was also a strong bonding point for us. We had some overlap in our loves, which was great, but she introduced me to so many new artists and genres I hadn't explored previously, and, I think, I was able to do the same. Her ability to find and extract goodness in anything was delightful. We had made plans to go to this nearby club. It was a very artsy type of place. I hadn't been there before, but she loved it. A rapper I loved was playing there, accompanied by a jazz band. It was the perfect mixture of our musical worlds. Her father was sick though. She ended up taking a week off from work to go back to her home country to be with him towards his end. The last thing she said to me was a promise to be back before our date. It happened one night at my full-time job. I worked at a big office supply store in the print center there. I went on my lunch break and popped a Totino's brand combination flavored party pizza into the break room microwave. I know they give you instructions on the packaging, but I'm a Totino's head from way back and I prefer to just peek into the microwave and eyeball it for perfection. I like it to sear the roof of my mouth straight off. I don't want there to be any more gums or whatever is up in my mouth there anymore, nothing but bone for me, please. Totino's brand party pizzas burn my mouth right off. Now, not many people understand the mechanics involved in cooking a party pizza in the microwave. The trick is to simply put the pizza on a microwave-safe plate along with a cup of water. You see, microwaves release low-level radiation that increases the kinetic energy of the molecules in the food you cook. The movement of molecules makes the food warm and, without the cup of water there, the water molecules in the food would turn into steam inside the food and make the Totino's brand party pizza soggy. But that cup of water will attract those water molecules in the food and will actually extract them from the food and pull them into the cup of water, making the party pizza nice and crispy. If you microwave the party pizza without the cup, the water molecules just stay in the crust and make it soggy. Make sure you don't fill the cup up too much though, because you will need some space for the water from the frozen pizza to go. So, later that night, maybe around 6:30 or so, my phone started buzzing. It was a coworker from my part-time job. I didn't answer, and when I was available I texted her explaining that I was at work and not able to take a call. I asked her to just text me, but she said that it really wasn't something she wanted to talk about via text. I said if it couldn't wait then she could call my work and ask for me and I would be able to talk with her briefly. She calls my work and I answer. It is me and one other person in the print center and we are very busy. I let her know that I'm not alone and that I don't know how long I could stay on the phone. She tells me that Jeannie's uncle, who she had been living with here in America, had called our job to inform them that she had passed away a few days ago. She was with friends at a beach when a tide came in and dragged down a friend that was with her. She reached down to pull her friend back and ended up getting pulled in as well. She got to see her father once more before he passed. The rest of her family got to see her once more before she passed. I don't think I said anything much more than, oh. In the moment. I mostly just stood there staring off as more customers lined up and my coworker with me at the print center moving quickly around me to keep up with the customers. After she hung up I went back to helping customers but eventually hid away into this locked room near the print center where electronics and other high-value items for the store are kept. My print supplies are kept in this room too. I told the other print worker I needed to get some paper. In there I just sort of stood around for a couple minutes breathing. When my head cleared I picked up a boxed keyboard. The room sort of snaked around a corner and the camera could only see the initial hallway part, so I walked to where I wouldn't be recorded. I took the keyboard in both of my hands and raised it above my head and slammed it down onto these slanted metal shelves hooked to the walls. I repeatedly smashed the product, slowly, with full force. The box quickly tore apart and I kept going until the actual keyboard had started to show damage. Then I just punched the shelving. Over and over. My hand was discolored and in pain. I grabbed a couple of reams of random paper and went back to the sales floor. I tried to look and act normal for the last couple hours left of my shift. Not sure how well I did that, but I tried. It wasn't as if I had lost some great, magnificent love. Trying to be rational, I had known her for almost 6 months. That's it. And we had only started becoming close over the last one. But the future felt really good, and I very, very rarely think about my future. Usually there is too much struggling with the current situation, I sat there for the first time in my life mourning a future that I desperately wish I had the chance to screw up. There was no exploring what could have been with her, though. No regretting something I had done to push her away. It was just the unfeeling wrath of the universe that happened to land on someone I cared about. Why couldn't there have been some blame to cast? Some logic to it? After the store closed, I stopped by my favorite liquor store on my way home. I listened to music she enjoyed and cried all night. I woke up the next morning. I was severely hungover. I hadn't blacked out or anything. I remembered leaving work, walking home, drinking tons, going to bed. I woke up and just cried more. Eventually my phone made some noise. It was a text from Jeannie. Jeannie, who was supposed to have drowned. She wanted to get breakfast. I checked my texts and didn't have any at all from the night before. My hand, though, was still all banged up from the metal shelving I hit at work. Then I met up with her and we had breakfast. We still had plans to go to a show in a week. She hadn't drowned, she hadn't even left the country, apparently. This was October of 2017, so it has been a few years now, and she is still alive. We went to that concert. We are still together. But for hours I was mourning her. For hours my heart was shattered. Then I wake up and it still felt like she was gone. That experience of losing her and being so fucking angry at the universe was still there. I was still angry. In part because I don't know if I will wake up. Maybe the last few years have just been a goddamn dream. Maybe myself. Maybe my mind is just a mess and I'm locked up somewhere, out of my mind. I'm terrified she is actually dead, and I just won't know until I've lived out some amazing dream life only to wake up the next morning after that stupid phone call. I cannot feel happiness. I'm so terrified at understanding the situation that I just can't allow myself to relax and feel happy. That was side-splitting. So, what explanations could there be? Psychological self-sabotage. A vivid hallucination brought on by his own mind, inspired by personal historical data. Perhaps a temporary glimpse into a separate timeline. Wherever you think this story falls on the spectrum between fact or fiction, it at the very least highlights an area of our world that we need to look at closer. Find out what skeletons are hidden in that paranormal closet. Until next time, keep digging.